The biggest thing I lost in life was never a person, place, or a thing. It was myself. And this didn't happen to me randomly. This happened because I had built my identity on a lot of external things like social approval, cultural values, familial expectations. It was never built from inner knowing. And on the outside, I always looked like a very confident person. But on the inside, I was riddled with worry, fear, self-doubt, anxiety, you name it. After graduating with my sociology degree in my early 20s, I left my job that I was at for 7 years, moved from the country that I called home for almost 2 decades, away from everyone and everything that I knew, to start a completely new life elsewhere. I moved for law school, which was always a dream of mine. After moving, at a certain point, I realized that I had been living according to an identity that I never consciously chose for myself. It was never something that I actually wanted, or maybe I did at that time, but it was never who I knew I was meant to be. Hello, friends, and welcome to Beginning Again. I am Saloni, your host, and this will be a space for honest and meaningful conversations about self-discovery, self-trust, clarity, and the stories that we tell ourselves that shape the lives that we live. So, clearly by the intro, today we're talking about self-trust. So, what is self-trust really? For a long time, I thought that self-trust was maybe confidence. I thought it was knowing the answers. I thought it was certainty. But what I eventually learned is that self-trust is something much, much quieter than that. It's something much more practical, and it's a muscle that you build with consistency. Like everything else, it really helps me to think about it that way, because then you can start making little changes at a time. It doesn't feel overwhelming. Self-trust isn't something that you can just gather up within one day. It will take time, and maybe it's a lifelong process. But self-trust is the ability to stay in relationship with yourself even when things are unclear, even when you're uncertain, even when you don't know what decision to make. It's the ability to be with yourself and not abandon yourself no matter how unclear you are. And this isn't about never asking for help, and I want to make that clear. But it's more so about knowing when the answer already lives within you. More precisely, what I realized, self-trust, it's the belief that your perceptions are worth examining. Your feelings have meaning and they're giving you information. You can tolerate uncertainty without abandoning yourself, and that you'll act in your own best interest even when things are unclear, and maybe especially when things are unclear. Self-trust is our capacity to listen inward, to evaluate, and to stay with yourself, even in the process of figuring it out. So, how do I put this into practice? How do I refrain from outsourcing my power? Once I started to think about self-trust in this way, I began noticing how quick I am to give my power away when I am uncertain. And one of the first places I realized is I look outside myself for answers a lot. It used to be almost the first thing that I did always. But what I started doing every time I felt like the pull to lean on somebody or to go and ask somebody for advice about something that was very deeply personal to me, I paused. Something very small, but something very intentional. Whenever I find myself wanting to ask for advice when I know I should rely on myself, I pause and I get out of whatever app I'm about to go into, because everybody I love and everybody I trust lives very far away from me. Sorry. I will close whatever app I'm on and I will sit with myself. I will journal. I will reflect. I'll research if I need to. But basically what I do is I just give myself time. I just don't rush to decisions anymore, because there is no rush. There's no rush at all. So being a seeker of answers, this made me ask a bigger question. Why do so many of us struggle to trust ourselves? I think that if more of us trusted ourselves, we would go for it more. And go for what? Whatever we wanted. The good thing is we can learn how to build self-trust and we can learn how to trust ourselves. So why do so many of us struggle to trust ourselves? It's not because we're incapable, it's because we're conditioned. From a young age, we're taught to prioritize societal expectations and societal approval over inner knowing. We learn to trust systems, we learn to trust grades, institutions, titles, roles, people, everything besides ourselves. And that's essentially giving all of your power away to these symbolic things. And that leads to feeling powerless within yourself. And that's not a nice feeling. So over time, our intuition gets quieter because of this. And it doesn't disappear. It just gets buried underneath all of what we know from the outside world. And one of the biggest things I learned from law school and from therapy that has really helped me with self-trust is knowing how to separate the facts from just stories. And this is different. This is separating what actually happened, the truth of the situation, from the story that I told myself about what that situation meant. And what I realized was that my self-trust was breaking down within those stories I was telling myself, not the facts. The facts were informative. The facts informed me about what was real and what to trust. But the stories that I had told myself, that I began to tell myself at such a young age, those were the things that were holding me back, the stories that I told. But here's the nice thing is we can reframe these stories and we can start telling ourselves different stories. But what I realized is when we don't slow down to stop and think and examine our assumptions, we mistake interpretation for truth. So I realized that it's hugely important to separate what you know from the outside world and what you know within yourself. Learning how to slow down and think clearly and not rush to decisions right away and not rush to asking somebody right away about what I should do with my life and my decisions. I decided to be honest with myself. I didn't need to be certain about what was going to happen and what was going to be the outcome of that decision. I just needed to be honest. I just needed to look at the facts. So coming back to yourself doesn't mean becoming someone new. It means remembering who you were before everything piled on top. It's choosing yourself in the small moments that you think don't matter, as well as the really big ones. It's staying kind and present with yourself, even when you feel super unsure about the decision you've made. And it's about staying kind to yourself and present with yourself through the consequences of those decisions. And that's not to say make bad decisions and stick by them. No, but make those decisions and own up to what went wrong and what you can do better next time. And it's trusting that even when you don't have all the answers, that you won't abandon yourself in the process of figuring it out. So if you're feeling lost right now, it doesn't mean you're broken. It might mean you are being invited to begin again. So begin again, guys. And it doesn't have to be beginning again, doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes all it is choosing to listen inward, one moment at a time. Thank you all so much for joining me. I had so much fun doing this, and I will be back for more.